Thousands have gathered here in Washington for the third Women's March. They are promoting women's and civil rights, and they are protesting against the Trump administration, which they see as curtailing those liberties. Parallel marches are being held from New York to Los Angeles, London to Berlin, but allegations of bigotry among its leaders have split that movement this year. I'm joined now by Molly Jong-Fast. She is an activist and a columnist with the Forward, an American Jewish newspaper. Thanks so much for joining us, Molly. This is the third annual Women's March, as I mentioned. How do the goals this time around compare to the ones in the past?
Well, I think the first Women's March was much more focused because we were reacting to Trumpism in a really important and profound way. And we needed to get to the streets for people to see how much power women had to resist Trumpism. But as things have changed now and we've sort of evolved and we've won back the House, we've found ways to be able to do volunteerism, which is much more effective in a certain way.
And Molly, attendance seems to be lower at today's march. Some high-profile supporters and organizations have chosen not to participate this year. Why do you think that is?
There's been a lot of controversy about it, and there were a bunch of articles about anti-Semitism and a lot of fragmenting, and then there was this interview where one of the leaders refused to denounce Louis Farrakhan. And Louis Farrakhan is just a famous anti-Semite, and if you want to be a leader of an inclusionary movement, you have to say no to anti-Semitism.
And let's talk outside of the U.S. a little bit. What about participation abroad? We showed some images of some of these rallies in London and Berlin. How is the movement faring in other countries besides the U.S., do you think?
I think, the movement is there. I just think the march, we're more than the march now. Women are able to, it's just much easier to volunteer than it's ever been. We have things like Swing Left and Flippable and all of these organizations. You can literally just go on your phone and there's an app for writing letters to leaders. I mean, it's much more organized now, how we can all be radicals and we don't have to wear a funny hat and march in the streets.
And Molly, how do you see this movement moving forward after today's march and beyond?
Well, I think what's exciting, and this is really a legacy of the first Women's March, is that we won back the House. We have 32 women in Congress. We have these amazing women, youngest Latino woman. We have the youngest African American woman. We have a lot of women just taking power. So my dream is that in 2020 we win a lot of Senate seats with young women of color, not of color, the whole thing, and that we take back the government because women are very powerful. And if we see anything, I think the legacy of the march is that women are powerful.
My last question, let's jump back to a point you made earlier about controversy surrounding the leadership, allegations of anti-Semitism, and we see this internal conflict within the organization. How do you think this will affect the unity of the movement in the future?
Well, hopefully it won't. Hopefully there's enough of a big tent for everyone and that we'll all be able to sort of, get focused around a 2020 nominee for president. But it's one of the scary things about the Democratic Party is there are so many voices that there's a lot of controversy. And that's always been true, and that probably will always be true to a certain extent.
All right, Molly Jong-Fast, activist and columnist with the Forward, an American Jewish newspaper.